CEOs join and leave companies on a regular basis. Sometimes they leave of their own volition, usually for a better position elsewhere or simply to retire. Other times they are forced out by the board or shareholders. While forcing out a CEO is not the easiest task in the 21st century, forcing a country's king to abdicate in the 17th century was far harder. Regardless, that was exactly what English parliamentarians and nobles tried to do in the 1680s when faced with the imminent accession of a Catholic monarch. The result was the 1688 Glorious Revolution. To understand the impetus behind such remarkable actions, we must first learn a little about England in the 17th century. Arguably the largest fear in English society in the 17th century was Catholicism and Catholics. Englishmen were constantly worried that an attack from a foreign Catholic power, such as France or Spain, or insurrection at home would foist Catholicism upon the English, endangering their immortal souls. Indeed, one of the driving forces behind the English Civil War of the 1640s was English fears that Charles I's Arminian policies were too closely related to Catholic practices. Considering this, it should come as little surprise that the line of succession in the 1680s greatly alarmed Englishmen. King Charles II and his wife, Catherine of Braganza, produced no heirs. According to English law, the throne, upon Charles's death in 1685, passed to his brother James II. Though Charles was an Anglican, his brother James had been raised Catholic in exile in France during the Civil War and Interregnum and secretly converted to Catholicism in the late 1660s. James's Catholicism was widely rumored in England, and his relations with his rabidly anti-Catholic subjects were made worse when he attempted to secure wider toleration for Catholicism in England after his 1685 accession. Most Protestant Englishmen felt something clearly needed to be done. Several attempts had been made prior to Charles II's death to exclude James from the line of succession, though all had failed. After James's pro-Catholic policies were made public, the ire of those same exclusionists was raised yet again. Additionally, the birth of James's son in 1688, who was sure to be raised Catholic, made the prospect of a Catholic line of succession in England all too real for many English Protestants. As a result, several English parliamentarians made secret overtures to William of Orange, the stadtholder of the Dutch Republic. William was married to James's daughter, Mary, who outside of James II and his son, had the most legitimate claim to the English throne. Most importantly, both William and Mary were staunch Protestants with a record of fighting the spread of Catholicism and the Counter-Reformation. After a series of secret conversations and letters between the parliamentarians and William, in which they assured William of the whole of England's support, William declared he was invading England to protect the rights of Protestants and investigate the legitimacy of James II's son. James's surprising response was to flee to the continent. As a result, though William's original intention was not to take the English throne for himself, James had all but abdicated by December 1688 when William's force arrived in London. As a result, William was appointed provisional ruler, and a parliament was immediately called in January 1689. In February, Parliament voted to exclude James and all his heirs from the English throne as he had left the seat of the throne and abdicated de facto. Subsequently, William and Mary were made King and Queen of England for life, with the succession being secured as English by placing Mary's sister, Anne, rather than any of William and Mary's presumably Dutch future children, as the direct heir to the throne. The exclusion of James II and offering of the throne to William and Mary were not the only business the 1689 Parliament concluded. In addition, the Chamber drew up a list of grievances as to the liberties and rights of English subjects which James had violated, hence justifying William's invasion. Most importantly, the bill further listed the rights which Englishmen and Parliament considered inalienable. The bill was accepted by William and Mary, and in December 1689 the rights listed in the bill were codified into law by an Act of Parliament. Included in the 13 clauses listed in the 1689 Bill of Rights were provisions which made it illegal for the king to tax without parliamentary consent, maintain a standing army in peacetime, or interfere with parliamentary debate or elections of its members. In turn, Englishmen's freedom of speech was preserved, along with Protestants' ability to maintain arms. Unreasonable fines, bail, cruel and unusual punishment, and ecclesiastical courts were outlawed, and each Englishman was guaranteed the ability to petition the king without fear of retribution. Not long after William's reign ended with his death in 1702, Parliament unified Scotland and England into the Kingdom of Great Britain through the 1707 Act of Union, a political union which lasts to this day. Additionally, the English Parliament abolished itself and the Scottish Parliament, supplanting both with the Parliament of Great Britain to be seated in London. The same Act of Union further secured a smooth transition of the throne from Queen Anne, who had no heirs, to the Electress Sophia of Hanover. Her son, George I, took the English throne in 1714, ending the tumultuous Stuart dynasty of England and beginning the Hanoverian dynasty, which would last until Queen Victoria's death in 1901. In closing, the 1688 Glorious Revolution was a remarkable event. The English Parliament managed to finish the job of subjugating the monarchy to parliamentary authority, a task which had begun with the civil wars of the 1640s. By displacing James for William and Mary on grounds that James had transgressed against the rights of the people, the English Parliament substantiated the theories of John Locke and others that the king had a binding social contract with his people. In addition, the English managed to pass a Bill of Rights for its people, which guaranteed each English citizen a certain modicum of power which the monarchy could not touch, the first measure of its kind in Western Europe and a landmark in English history.